It's shocking how recklessly some nations and leaders toss around threats of nuclear war these days, as if they've forgotten the horrors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Those were just 2 bombs, yet they wiped out entire cities, leaving scars that hurt to this day. Now imagine that destruction multiplied 1,000-fold. Modern nuclear arsenals, far more powerful and numbering in the hundreds or thousands, could obliterate life on Earth in a matter of moments. A single global nuclear war today wouldn't last more than 90 minutes, but its impact would leave millions dead and the planet mutilated forever. This isn't a violent, fancy video game. It's humanity's survival at stake. Setsuko Thurlow was 13 years old when the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. She was in a school building. She describes being trapped under the rubble and hearing the cries of her classmates. Eventually, she managed to crawl out. Setsuko later became a well-known anti-nuclear weapons activist, sharing her story worldwide. In her Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech in 2017, she recalled, "When I came out, I saw the destroyed city and people, some burned beyond recognition, with skin hanging from their bodies." Shigeko Sasamori was also a 13-year-old student, was only about 1.5 kilometers from the hypocenter. She describes being thrown through the air by the explosion and waking up to see her skin hanging off her body. She walked through the devastated city, witnessing the charred remains of buildings and people, many of whom were crying for water. Keiji Nakazawa was 6 years old. In his graphic novel, Barefoot Gen, he vividly describes his experience. He was about 1.2 kilometers from the hypocenter. His mother and he survived, but his father, sister, and younger brother were trapped under the rubble of their house. Nakazawa recalls his mother screaming for help, but they were unable to save them as the house burned down. Kiyoshi Tanimoto, a Methodist minister, was 3 kilometers from the hypocenter. In John Hersey's famous book, Hiroshima, Tanimoto recounts, "A tremendous flash of light cut across the sky, a tremendous ball of fire that appeared as a giant sheet of sun. He survived and immediately rushed to the aid of those in need." Tanimoto spent the next several days ferrying survivors across a river and offering water to those dying of radiation poisoning. Now imagine these scenes worldwide if a nuclear war is triggered by one crazy push of some red button by any side. Such a war would have no winners. The only question would be, how few survived, and more importantly, in what condition? Important facts about Hiroshima and Nagasaki are well known and documented. However, there are some lesser-known facts that are not common knowledge. On the 6th of August 1945, an American B-29 bomber named Enola Gay dropped an atomic bomb on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. Instantly killed 80,000 people. Thousands more died from radiation exposure later. 3 days later, on 9th August 1945, a second atomic bomb was dropped on the city of Nagasaki, instantly killing another 40,000 people. Over time, the final death toll increased substantially from the devastating long-term effects of nuclear radiation fallout. 6 planes of the 509th Composite Group participated in this mission. One to carry the bomb, that was Enola Gay. Another one, the Great Artiste, to take scientific measurements of the blast. And a third, named Necessary Evil, to take photographs. After the Hiroshima bombing, thousands of the survivors fled to Nagasaki. But 3 days later, Nagasaki too was attacked, and many of those prior survivors fell victims at the hands of the second nuclear detonation. Official reports later amazingly suggested that there were about 165 people who survived both the bombings and were thereafter known as double survivors. Initially, 5 Japanese cities were on the US hit list, and Nagasaki was not one of them. The initial list included Kokura, Hiroshima, Yokohama, Niigata, and Kyoto. Kyoto was luckily spared because the then US Secretary of War, Henry Stimson, was said to be fond of the ancient Japanese capital, having spent his honeymoon there decades earlier. Nagasaki took the hit on its behalf. The Hiroshima bomb was made of highly enriched uranium-235, while the bomb dropped on Nagasaki was made of plutonium. Nagasaki bomb was regarded as the more complex design. The approach of two different bombs sadly smacks of a sort of experimentation approach. Both bombs were codenamed, the Hiroshima bomb known as Little Boy, while the Nagasaki one was codenamed Fat Man. It is said both codenames, Little Boy and Fat Man, were chosen by their creator Robert Serber, who drew inspiration from John Huston's 1941 film, The Maltese Falcon. In the movie, Fat Man is a nickname for Sidney Greenstreet's character Caspar Gutman, while the name Little Boy was the nickname of Humphrey Bogart's character, Spade. How about this? The bombing of Hiroshima or Nagasaki was not the most destructive World War II bombing. Operation Meeting House, which was conducted on the night of 9th to 10th March 1945, is the single most destructive bombing raid recorded in human history. On the night of September 10, 1945, a napalm attack was carried out by US Air Force 334 B-29 bombers, in which more than 90,000 and possibly over 100,000 Japanese people were killed, mostly civilians. Several times that number were also injured, and 1 million were left homeless. Policemen in Nagasaki were saved by the duck and cover method. The method enhanced the chances of personal protection in case of a nuclear explosion, especially to practitioners who were outside the radius of the nuclear fireball, but still in the range in which they would suffer grave injuries or death if they had been standing upright. The 1946 book named Hiroshima mentions how a Hiroshima policeman went to Nagasaki and taught their police to duck after the atomic flash. It is claimed that as a result, not a single Nagasaki policeman died in the initial blast. This allowed the Nagasaki police to organize better relief efforts than in Hiroshima. Sadly, the public was ignorant of this self-protection method. Obama was the first American leader to visit Hiroshima since the bombing. That was on May 27, 2016. Ginkgo biloba is a unique species of trees. It is a living fossil, 270 million years old. Ginkgo has survived many extinction events. Its tenacity was seen in Hiroshima. 6 ginkgo trees within 1 to 2 kilometers from the bomb explosion were among the very few living things that survived the blast. The trees healed quickly and are still alive today. In Hiroshima's Peace Memorial Park, a flame has burned continuously since it was lit in 1964. The peace flame will remain lit until all nuclear bombs on the planet are destroyed, and the planet is free from the threat of nuclear destruction. That remains a dream too far, it seems, given the increase rather than decrease in the number of nuclear warheads spread around the world since then.